One theme that we've been talking about, of course, here is what His Highness is doing with NEOM and all of the technology that is going to be in this new city of the future. Where do you see the opportunities in terms of starting from scratch? When you have a city, what kind of technologies are going to be most needed?
Well, there's a tremendous amount that one can do when one starts something new from scratch, because one of the things that's very striking about the great cities of the world, like London, New York, Silicon Valley, many other places, is that even though they are these incredibly dynamic economic places, it's extremely hard to change things. And so, in New York City, it costs $1 billion to build 1 mile of subway, or something like that.
Wow.
In San Francisco, you can't build new highways or anything new. The transportation grid is set, and so there is this very weird transportation problem with the big cities, where in effect it becomes incredibly hard to build new transportation once the basic city's been built, if the transportation systems are inadequate. And I would say they are badly inadequate in all of our major cities, even in the developed world. Emerging world, they're catastrophic. Developed world, they're generally inadequate. It ends up meaning that people have either super long commutes, or they need to live in small apartments near the city center, where they have to spend all their salaries on the apartments. And so, I think it distorts the economics in these cities to a tremendous degree. In London, the inelasticity of housing in London is -2, which means that if you built 1% more housing in London, the average price of the average house would go down by 2%, which is a crazy economic reality. So the more housing you build in London, the less the housing is collectively worth. And that tells you that and that's because the transportation systems are in the 19th century, and it's completely stuck. And that's a challenge that I think you could, rethink in a very exciting way. And so I wonder if one could do something where we could build a potentially enormous city, but one where the transportation works at every level.
That's a great point. So transportation, we've been hearing a lot about, obviously, with ride-sharing companies like an Uber, like a Lyft. What is your take on what transportation will look like in the future? Will it be ride-sharing? Will we have automated and autonomous and driverless cars? What is your vision in terms of transportation and how it changes for big cities?
Well, I think all these things are gradually approaching. It's certainly just the shift to companies like Uber or Lyft, which I'm invested in, is itself a very big change. The self-driving car trend, it's a trend. It's a very important trend for the economy. It'll change consumer behavior tremendously. If you had self-driving cars, maybe you could have a longer commute because you could work in the car, or maybe some things would change. I'm not sure it's a good investment, because there are a lot of companies doing similar technologies in self-driving cars, and it's hard to know exactly how differentiated they are. The transportation-related technology that I wonder about more than self-driving cars, though, is there some way to do an end run around our broken transportation systems? And the IT version that people have talked about for decades is telecommuting. And so would there be some way to so that you won't need transportation at all, and you can just do your work remotely? And this is, for a variety of reasons, this has not worked for the last 30, 40 years that people have been talking about it. But the problem generally is that if people work from their homes, they don't work as hard, they don't have any, and then there's a lot of the value of work comes from talking to people in various ways. But I think we're starting to see more and more of this telecommuting in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, where people are finding small teams of developers outside of Silicon Valley. There are ways to sort of bundle and put the work in certain packages that you allocate to different people. And so I think maybe one of the end runs around the transportation system will be telecommuting. I think that's one that would be that's a trend that's underrated, that's worth exploring a lot more. It's not, so you can look at trends that aren't on anybody's radar.